Let me introduce myself. Hello and greetings to everybody watching this at the London Book Fair. My name is Sneled Ekim. I have spent 35 years working as a technical advisor in the educational development sector. I've worked in Middle Eastern countries, specifically Kuwait, Yemen, Saudi Arabia. I've worked in Africa, Sudan, Republic of Benin, Ivory Coast, and Rwanda. And I'm working at the moment in Cambodia in Southeast Asia. The projects I've worked on have been funded by various aid agencies, one of which is our own British Department for International Development, others by the European Commission, also the United States Agency for International Development, and the Asian Development Bank. I'm divorced. I have 2 children, 2 girls, both of whom are multilingual, one of whom is working for BNP Paribas in Paris, and the other is completing a degree at the University of Surrey in UK. And the reason for talking to you today is to tell you about a novel that I have written, which is being published as an ebook by Interlingue Books. The book is entitled Rhythm, Blues and Soul, or Who Do You Love? The title is in 2 parts because, to a certain extent, the 2 parts mean the same thing. That might not be obvious, but if you think about rhythm, blues and soul, it refers to popular music and the various genres of popular music. And if you think about the lyrics of popular music, they are often about the relationship between men and women, about love. Do you still love me, or do you love someone else? Which is the reason for the who do you love part. The story of the book is in 2 parts. And again, that is not really correct, because it's the same story told from 2 different points of view. The first point of view is the contemporary point of view, the story as it happens in our time, as it were. And the second part of the story is told in the future by a group of people that are forced to live underground by a catastrophe which occurred, and who are deciding that they have realized that they can live on the surface of the earth rather than underground. When they were forced underground, their ancestors took with them a lot of technology and documents and things, which those things got forgotten over several generations. And now that they are able to go onto the surface again, they are investigating the contemporary story. The contemporary story is a story of a couple that is in crisis because of the suicide of their daughter. Neither of the couple was expecting this to happen. They were both very confused by it. It has a very negative effect on the couple because they are unable to communicate. They can't really talk to each other at all. They certainly can't talk about the suicide. But eventually, the male part of the couple, whose name is Jack, persuades his partner, whose name is Amanda, to go to a party. They have been unable to socialize, but eventually Jack persuades Amanda that they should go out. And they do. They go to a party. And that's a very good thing in the sense that Amanda reacquires her taste for social life. And another consequence of this going out is that Amanda meets a person who eventually gives her a job. So she begins to work. And after a while, she starts to come home late. She stays late at work. And that means that it is Jack's responsibility to look after the two remaining daughters, put them to bed at night, and so on. What Amanda does not tell Jack is that she is investigating the company where she has started to work. She has come to realize that the company is not very honest, and so her reason for staying late is to investigate things when there's no one else about. She also begins to get clues about the suicide of her elder daughter, and she discovers the existence of a teenage boy called Nicky. This Nicky was working for the company that Amanda is now working for, but he was forcibly repatriated by the company, and since he was in love with the elder daughter of Amanda, that was the reason for Amanda's daughter's suicide. What Amanda doesn't know is that the company realizes that it's going to be investigated and is planning to eliminate any evidence of its wrongdoing by causing a large and very destructive flood. It will do this by blowing up a dam in the north of the country. Amanda does not know this, but the other half of the couple, Jack, finds it out. He thinks it's a preposterous idea, but he feels that if it's possibly true and that Amanda might be in danger, then he has to somehow tell her and prevent any risk to her. So they get back together for that reason. They have a common objective. Amanda is working in the north of the country in one of the company's installations there, and she would be in danger if there were really to be a flood. So Jack's task is to go and tell her about this and to get her out of danger if possible. They travel together to the dam, and they are present when a rebel group composed mainly of teenagers foil the company's attempt to blow up the dam. And the rebel group has been joined by the boy Nicky, who has managed to escape from where he was taken and go back to the country and join up with the rebel group. I should have said before that the two parts of the story are not sequential. That's to say, it's not that we tell the contemporary part and then the futuristic part. They are told side by side. As I said before, the futuristic part is about people like us who were forced by some kind of catastrophe to live underground, which is what they did. And despite the fact that the first people to live underground came from the surface and brought with them lots of technological knowledge and technological devices and scientific knowledge, their main concern in the early days was to survive. So a lot of this knowledge that was brought got forgotten over several generations. They, after a while, discover that they can actually go to the surface and live in the overground, as I call it. And the story focuses on somebody who is called an enquirer. He doesn't have a name, but he has a title, which is enquirer. And his job is to investigate further afield on the surface, in the overground. He, as part of the rediscovery of their consciousness, they have decided to that they need to reacquire the lost knowledge that came with their ancestors, but which they forgot. And one of the inquirer's specialities is that he has become an expert in songs. The first undergrounders brought with them, in addition to the technology and scientific knowledge, they brought some traditional songs, one of which is called The House on the Hill. So while the inquirer is traveling and investigating further afield to determine if the rest of the country is habitable or not, he comes across a house which bears an uncanny resemblance to the house on the hill in the traditional song. He investigates it from this point of view. He doesn't really believe it because he's a bit of a scientist and a bit skeptical. But he investigates the house, he collects lots of artifacts from the house which is still standing and therefore probably was not damaged in the catastrophe which took place. It is still standing, although it is several generations older than it was when the catastrophe happened. He collects a lot of artifacts and papers and things from this house, and he takes them back to where he came from, to the place where his people are living. And it is decided that it is worthwhile to return to the area where the house on the hill is located and to do further investigation. So there is a bigger expedition involving more specialists. And this time the inquirer goes with his partner, and they visit together the house on the hill. They find more evidence to suggest that the story in the song of the house on the hill is probably true. And they find evidence about a lost child. And at the end of all of this, the reader is left with the idea that the house that the inquirer has investigated is probably the house where Jack and Amanda lived in the contemporary story. And that's really about it. Final thing that I should say is that there is a soundtrack which accompanies this story. It consists of 25 songs. They are mainly blues, rhythm and blues and soul songs. And the lyrics of those songs reflect the feelings of Jack. And the reader will have the ability to choose whether or not to have the soundtrack as they read. And that's about it, really. If anybody has any questions to ask, I will try to answer them.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We have questions, and I'll pass to Marina a few questions for you.
Okay. I hope I can answer them. Hi.
My first question is exactly about the songs and lyrics.
Yes.
Because I have a feeling that they play an important role in your book.
Yes.
Were you inspired by the song and then decided to write the book, or did you write the book first and then search for the music that would suit your story?
I don't think one came before the other. I think they were simultaneous. I thought about the story, and at various points in the story, a song came to mind which seemed to reflect the feelings of Jack, or his reactions to what had happened. So I can't say that first there was one and then there was the other. They were simultaneous, and that's fairly, consistent with the whole story, in the sense that I don't tell the contemporary story and then the futuristic story one after the other. I tell them at the same time, you know. Next question.
Thanks. And the next question is about your life. You have lived in Cambodia for many, many years now,
yes.
And I'm sure it has changed over the years.
Absolutely.
Since you first went to live there.
Yes.
Is the book set, do you think it's set more in the past or present? Does it reflect the changes? The readers, would they know the Cambodia of today or of years gone by?
I don't think there is no intention that they should know anything about Cambodia.
Right.
You are right. Cambodia has changed a great deal since I first came here, which was in 1997. There was a civil war at that time. The civil war finished fairly soon after. There's been a great deal of developments. For example, I think when I first came in 97, there is no way that we could have done this, because there simply wouldn't have been an electricity supply that lasted most of the day usually. Today there is. I do experience power cuts, but they tend to be 10, 15, 20 minutes. And I think the background to the story is more based on my experiences in Africa than here in Cambodia. But I'm very, very careful not to identify any particular country.
That's very interesting. And my final question,
yeah.
I believe this is your first book.
Absolutely.
Would you say you are more a novelist or an author of thrillers?
I don't know. What is the difference? I don't know. I hope I'm a novelist. I have done academic writing before, but never anything as extensive as this. Did you hear that?
Good. Pardon?
Did you hear that?
Can you repeat, please?
I was saying that I would hope to be considered as a novelist rather than a writer of thrillers, but I don't see much of a contradiction. A novel can be a thriller, can't it?
Yes.
The last thing I said was that I've written academic things before, chapters in academic books, but never any fiction, really. Not extended fiction, anyway.
Well, I read your book through, and I really enjoyed it very much. I think it's really very nice, and I hope that we can attract as many readers as possible to our website, and that as many readers as possible will buy it.
Okay.
And I hope it will be a success.
Well, I hope.
We'll do all we can to advertise it.
All right. I will. I mean, I will tell friends about it, of course, but my friends are pretty limited, I would say. Certainly not of the numbers to make a success of the book, I suppose. But anyway, yes, I will try to do the same.